Xi Jinping targets Microsoft, and the police targeting American agents. The inherent contradiction of information security strategy. Hello, friends. Welcome to this episode of Inside View of China. Recently, the Communist Party of China has staged an intriguing double play. On the one hand, the top leadership claims to actively promote technology independence, to abandon American software like Microsoft, and localize key technologies. On the other hand, the public security organs issued a high-profile reward notice. The notice is said to be for American agents who attacked China's network. This is like Xi Jinping targeting Microsoft and the police targeting American agents. Use cases and actions to smear the insecurity of American technology. It seems to be catching spies, but actually to force the promotion of domestic operating systems. For political momentum, this phenomenon highlights the current information security strategy of the CCP national strategy. The top is eager to get rid of dependence on foreign technology. As for Xi Jinping, and the lower level is eager to cater to the upper level's idea, providing them with various bases, including sanctioning American agents, accusing Microsoft of having this technical vulnerability. We also call it a type of law enforcement that follows the wind. Next, let's analyze from an internal perspective what the CCP wants to do and what it can do. Before the program officially starts, I still invite friends to watch this program, while don't forget to like, follow, and comment. Your interaction. The weak voice that contributes to this column can spread a little further. For those driving, you can listen to this video through the podcast available via Apple Podcast or Spotify Podcast to search for Do When or Inside View of China to listen simultaneously. So the first thing we want to say is that China is currently holding high the banner of a domestic operating system, but it is difficult to get rid of its dependence on Microsoft Windows. For a long time, the Chinese government has been shouting for autonomy and control. De-Microsoftization means de-Windows. Ideal is plump, but the reality is skinny. As early as 2014, Microsoft stopped supporting Windows XP. Windows 8 was banned from government procurement, so domestic operating systems they welcomed the so-called historical opportunity. Oh, the call for revitalization has been getting louder. Unfortunately, several years have passed, this wish has basically failed. The largest domestic OS manufacturer, Red Flag, finally declared bankruptcy in 2014. The once popular Red Flag operating system came to an end. After more than 10 years of investment, every computer is still running Windows or Mac OS. Although the government has repeatedly requested government agencies to use domestic systems, but the implementation effect is worrying. For example, in 2015, the State Council has ordered government departments to stop purchasing Microsoft Windows. But according to later government procurement data, just in May 2020, then the central state organ still purchased at least 3,000 Windows 10 customized by the Chinese government. This shows that in practical work, many businesses cannot do without Windows. The domestic alternative is not unwilling to use, but they simply cannot be used. Even after the era of Xi Jinping, cybersecurity has been elevated to a national strategy. The government set up a cyberspace administration and emphasized information self-control. But the development of domestic operating systems, but with poor ecosystem and applications, and lack of competitiveness. Because of this, the Chinese government finally chose to cooperate with Microsoft to launch a customized version of Windows 10. To make do with it. This is actually acknowledging the fact that Microsoft is indispensable. Even official media had to admit that the Chinese operating system market is still dominated by Microsoft. Google, Apple, and other US companies dominate. There is no good enough domestic system yet to replace Windows. Oh, when I was in prison, whether in the Prison Bureau Central Hospital or in the high security prison where I often met some military inmates. Many people may say you're full of nonsense. The Army has military prisons. How could they be sent to local prisons? I want to tell you that military prisons are already overcrowded and can't hold them. Military prisoners often prefer to be in military prisons because in the military prison, has much better food than local prisons. They don't have to work. You can also wear military uniforms without military ranks instead of wearing the shoddy prison clothes. Although the military uniforms are also made by prisoners, but they still think military uniforms are better than prison clothes. At least the quality is better than the prison uniform. Let's get back to the topic. Me and these prisoners often talk about some internal situations of the Army, such as the network operating system of the Army. Oh, I remember a fellow inmate once told me that he said the Army is very funny now. The superior said the American operating system is insecure, while the domestic computer operating system is currently far behind, which often leads to missile launch failures and other major accidents. So some grassroots units have to use Microsoft. They only dare to use Windows 7 or Windows 10. What about Win 7? Only some old CPUs can support it. The Lenovo Office hosts used by the Army. These hosts are all with CPUs of more than 10 generations. But these hardware, it doesn't work with this old Windows. So sometimes we have to spend a lot of money to buy old computers in the market. And old parts. Many people will say, isn't this nonsense? Don't Office computers have a confidentiality system and watermark systems? Maybe you don't know that these frontline troops, for the convenience of their work on each computer, have installed a watermark removal applet. This is the real Chinese army. Don't think everyday Douyin and CCTV praise it to the sky, but in fact, it's another story. Subordinates for their political achievements, overstating their achievements. They deceive higher-ups one by one, and even deceive the Zhongnanhai. Xi Jinping of the State Council believed it. The domestic crappy system. It's useless. If they use it, they won't say that. Wow. In summary, on the one hand, the Chinese authorities see Microsoft as a security threat and get rid of it quickly. They try to use administrative means to promote de-Microsoftization. On the other hand, China's digital infrastructure is deeply tied to Microsoft's operating system. Once Microsoft is completely abandoned, the existing Office industry system will be at a loss. This dilemma makes the slogan of localization more of a political stance. But in reality, the dependence on Microsoft is still pervasive. Now, China has offered a so-called bounty for American agents. This is a high-profile counterattack. Or a political show? Let's take a look. While domestic substitution is in trouble, the Chinese public security system staged a big drama. It offered a public reward 3 NSA agents. In mid-April, Harbin Municipal Public Security Bureau of Heilongjiang Province, suddenly through official channels such as Xinhua News Agency, announced that through technical traceability, it had identified 3 NSA agents involved in the attack on 3 NSA agents. Catherine Wilson, Robert Snell, Stephen Johnson announced a reward for it. The news instantly went viral, which attracted widespread attention at home and abroad. After all, Chinese police named and wanted American intelligence agents is rare. On the surface, this seems to be China's tough response to U.S. cyber attacks. To publicly condemn American hacking through legal means to safeguard national cyber sovereignty. However, a closer analysis reveals that this move is more like a carefully planned political show. First, the wanted notice was not issued by the National Security Agency, but the local Public Security Bureau, which is quite unusual in itself. Secondly, in the notice, although the names and identities of the suspects were named, but no photos, clues to their whereabouts were released. And the reward amount is also vague. Some Chinese netizens question that is this a wanted notice issued to meet KPIs? Without a photo, the suspect's location. How can the reward be offered without a photo? It shows that it is not really relying on the public to arrest American agents. It's more like gestures than actual actions. From a political perspective, this reward notice is mainly for 2 aspects of publicity, internal and external. Internally, it aims to create China has suffered from the cyber aggression of U.S. imperialism public security organs to fight back against the U.S., to arouse the patriotic indignation of the people and support for the government. Some comments echoed that, well done, expose the US conspiracy, and so on. So, this rhetoric just reinforces nationalist sentiment. Externally, it tries to occupy the moral high ground and claims to the international community that China is also a victim of cyber attacks. From this, in response to the previous United States and other relevant countries against Chinese hackers. In the Sino-US public opinion game, China used the wanted notice to gain an advantage. Creating topics in global media. Simply put, it's more like a domestic anti-spy part of a spy drama and a PR operation for foreign audiences, rather than a viable law enforcement action. So, nationalistic emotions can't stop the propaganda war of cyber attacks, nor can it solve the security war. Behind this high-profile announcement actually means it is difficult to form substantial protection and countermeasures against cyber attacks. Offering a reward for foreign hackers. It sounds satisfying, but it cannot change a reality. The US NSA's cyber attacks are still ongoing. China's key information systems are still exposed to the technological advantages of opponents. Rather than catching agents, it is more like emphasizing to the whole country we were hacked by the Americans. This is precisely a way to divert attention. To divert attention to external enemies to ease domestic its own network security vulnerabilities. Whenever a major cybersecurity incident occurs, the Communist Party of China's standard operation is often first condemn external hackers in a high-profile manner, showing the results of traceability, then call on the whole nation to be vigilant and united. However, for how to strengthen its own network defense and reduce such incidents, it is not given specific instructions. Such as the cyber attack on the Asian Winter Games, China later released detailed attack details, even how many kinds of unknown vulnerabilities and how many times the attacks occurred. However, these information only prove that the power and advanced of the US cyber attacks did not tell the public how we should take or what effective measures we have taken to prevent attacks and avoid losses. Instead, we see that it was the Chinese technical team that traced back layer by layer. After the assistance of relevant countries, the original culprit was identified. Finally, it ended with a wanted notice. Post-event evidence is more than pre-defense passive mode. Is really unsettling. What's more worrying is that many key systems in China still rely on the Windows operating system, which may have been implanted with backdoors. In the investigation of the Asian Winter Games, the technical experts found that the NSA had sent encrypted instructions to encrypted instructions, which remotely activated some pre-installed backdoors. In other words, the other side is using the foreign software vulnerabilities, but can't replace foreign software vulnerabilities to break through the city. If domestic substitution can be successful, these backdoors should not exist. However, the reality is that domestic OS has not been able to replace it. We can only watch helplessly our opponents to run rampant in the Windows we rely on. At this time, launching public opinion and shout that it's all American imperialism is too insidious. In fact, it is to cover up its own shortcomings in defense. Through nationalism can certainly unite people in the short term and divert criticism of the government's dereliction of duty. However, but it cannot truly bridge the gap in technology. As industry insiders have pointed out, without building the operating system ecosystem, security vulnerabilities cannot be plugged. Shouting slogans cannot make the system more secure. It's a pity that the Communist Party of China's investment in cybersecurity is more focused on blocking the domestic internet and censorship of speech, and building a Great Wall firewall, but its internal control is impeccable. But it can't prevent and block these highly specialized cyber attacks, right? But it's an expert at home, but incompetent externally. This kind of security strategy that focuses on internal essentially, it focuses on maintaining stability and regime stability rather than technological national security. Harbin Asian Winter Games suffered a cyber attack can be seen as a concentrated manifestation of these contradictions. On the one hand, it shows that external forces like the US, the strong ability to penetrate China's important events, leaving the Chinese cybersecurity department overwhelmed. On the other hand, the CCP's response was more focused on propaganda, lacking strong technical countermeasures. According to public reports, during the Asian Winter Games in February, a large number of event information systems were subject to foreign intrusion attempts, including athlete registration, game release, and other key systems. Were all targeted. American hackers once attempted to steal the privacy data of athletes and interfere with the event. It can be imagined that if it weren't for the security team's support, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even so, China also admitted that the attacks peaked during the event. They tried to destroy the system many times. However, in the face of such a serious security challenge, what we saw were follow-up measures, mainly by holding press conferences to expose the enemy. And the specific source of the attack, which department of the NSA was involved, right? The Office of Tailored Access Operations. TAO, right? What methods were used, including using artificial intelligence technology and so on. Even 2 American universities were implicated. These dramatic details. Through the overwhelming coverage of CCTV and Xinhua News Agency, let the Chinese people have a better understanding, have a popular science understanding. But when we calm down and think about it, by disclosing these materials, can it prevent the next attack? Can it really make the network safer? Number, we should find the weak links in our own system and quickly fix the backdoor vulnerabilities, and enhance network protection, and enhance the network protection of critical infrastructure, instead of boasting about victory. In this regard, the CCP has shown an inertial and superficial tendencies. They focus on packaging things as public opinion achievements, while neglecting the low-key and hard work of technical rectification. Look at the bounty notice. It was intended to declare to crack down on foreign forces' cyberattacks and secrecy, and effectively safeguard national cybersecurity. The security of this cyberspace. The words were severe, but apart from creating a domestic news region, it didn't actually to enhance the country's cybersecurity coefficient. After all, the 3 named American agents, they can't be extradited to China for trial. China has no ability to cross-border arrest them. They will still go unpunished, and our country's network system will not be immune to subsequent attacks to automatically immunize against subsequent attacks. It is foreseeable that similar cyber games will continue. If the CCP can only use propaganda every time, but cannot gain the upper hand in technology, then the security threat will always be like a sword. Finally, I want to say that Xi Jinping targeting Microsoft and the FBI and the US agents behind it reveals the CCP's dilemma in the field of information security. The dilemma of being at a loss. It is afraid of being choked, but also lacks the support of strong strength. Domestic operating systems cannot replace Windows. It's no use shouting. No matter how high-profile the network attack notifications are, unless the defense is fundamentally improved, it's all in vain. Instead of continuing to perform this kind of security show, it is better to invest resources in a down-to-earth manner, solve the fundamental problems of insufficient ecology and technology. As a saying goes, sentiment and propaganda cannot support cybersecurity. To make China's network truly safe, it ultimately depends on excellent independent technology and practical defense capabilities, rather than slogans and shows. The CCP needs to face its internal contradictions. Stop using nationalism as a cover-up, and truly examine the gains and losses of information security strategy. And truly remove the Great Firewall and give people freedom. And truly integrate into the flood of world civilization, instead of taking big steps backward and restoring the old. Otherwise, on one hand, computers in China cannot do without Windows, while the other is the threat of foreign hackers. This contrast will only become more and more glaring, only by getting out of the illusion of superficial security and make up for the technological shortcomings. And truly carry out political system reform, only in this way can China be invincible. After all, security is not shouted out, but by doing it. Okay, friends, let's not waste time. That's all for today's program. See you at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching.